I'm Josie, and I hail from a quaint little place named Millstone, a tight-knit community where everyone recognized each other and the pace of life was unhurried. My parents, Max and Hadley, were pillars of virtue, instilling in me the principles of diligence and compassion. After graduating from high school, I craved a different scenery and seized the opportunity to attend a university in a bustling city, marking my departure from Millstone. The urban environment was a stark contrast, loud, vast, and swift-moving, unlike the tranquil town I left behind. Adjusting took some time, but I eventually found my footing, completing my studies and securing a job at a reputable company shortly after. Initially, I kept to myself, spending most of my time engrossed in work or exploring new technological trends. I enjoyed the solitude, especially after the loss of my parents during the pandemic, which was a tough period for me. I ended up selling our family home in Millstone and purchasing an apartment close to my job in the city, creating a fresh beginning for myself. Among the few possessions I took with me was a cherished painting by a renowned English artist, a family heirloom gifted to my great-grandmother that provided a comforting reminder of home. Work consumed much of my time, but I also launched a YouTube channel focused on information security. Surprisingly, it gained traction, attracting viewers who sought advice on protecting their personal data and securing online accounts. One day, I received a message from Daniel, a viewer who appreciated my content and had questions about online security. Our conversations evolved from professional to personal as we shared details about our lives, hobbies, and aspirations. Daniel eventually suggested meeting for coffee to continue our discussions in person. Apprehensive about meeting someone from the internet, I hesitated, but his sincerity won me over. We met at a cozy cafe near my apartment, and the connection was instantaneous. Daniel was just as personable face-to-face, sharing his passion for marketing, hiking, and his dreams of globetrotting. As we delved deeper into each other's worlds, our bond deepened. Daniel's humor, charm, and genuine interest in my endeavors were refreshing. I found myself eagerly anticipating our conversations and get-togethers, which blossomed into a meaningful relationship. One evening, as we strolled through a park, Daniel complimented me, saying, "Josie, you're amazing. I've never met anyone like you." Flattered and a bit shy, I thanked him, feeling grateful for the wonderful turn my life had taken. I enjoyed a fulfilling career, a growing YouTube channel, and a budding romance with Daniel that brought me immense joy. About 7 months into our relationship, Daniel thought it was time I met his mother. Nervous yet excited, I agreed, and we set off to visit her home in a serene neighborhood, ready to embark on this new chapter together. We rang the bell, and soon Amaya opened the door. She stood tall, her short gray hair framing a face with sharp, observant eyes. "Hi, Mom." Daniel greeted her warmly with a hug. "This is Josie." "Hello, Josie," Amaya said, her handshake firm, almost too firm. "Nice to meet you," I managed, offering a polite smile. We moved into the living room, settling down as Amaya offered us coffee. Returning with a tray, she took a seat opposite us and dove right into questioning. "So, Josie, Daniel tells me you work in IT," she started. "Yes, I do," I responded, trying to keep my tone light. "I'm with a company downtown." "And how long have you been with them?" she probed further. "About 4 years now," I replied, feeling the atmosphere grow a bit tenser. Amaya nodded thoughtfully before her next question caught me off guard. "And what sort of salary does a job like that pay?" I hesitated, taken aback by her directness. Enough to live comfortably," I said, looking to Daniel for some support. The remainder of our visit continued in a similar vein, Amaya meticulously inquiring about my financial stability. By the time we left, I felt completely drained. "That was intense," I remarked as we got into the car. "She's just protective," Daniel assured me, trying to lighten the mood as he started the engine. "She'll warm up to you." A year later, Daniel and I were married, and life began to settle into a new normal with us living together in my apartment. However, Amaya's intense curiosity about my finances seemed only to intensify. She would often visit, inspecting our home and commenting on any new purchases. "Oh, is that a new couch?" she'd ask curiously. How much did that cost? Initially, I brushed off her questions. I'm not sure, Amaya. I'd respond vaguely. I don't remember. But she persisted, scrutinizing price tags and even looking items up online as if on a personal mission to catalog my finances. Why does your mom care so much about what I spend? I finally asked Daniel one evening. She doesn't mean anything by it, he chuckled, dismissing my concerns. She just likes to know things. But to me, it was more than a minor annoyance. It felt invasive and disrespectful. Despite my efforts to establish boundaries, Amaya seemed oblivious, frequently dropping by unannounced, her visits stretching longer each time. One Saturday, hoping for a quiet day at home, I was interrupted by the doorbell. Opening the door, there was Amaya, smiling as if poised for a long visit. Hi, Josie, she greeted. Thought we could spend the day together. Amaya, I need some alone time today, I replied, trying to be as polite yet firm as possible. Oh, come on, she insisted, brushing past me into the apartment. We can have some coffee and chat. It'll be fun. Reluctantly, I agreed, hoping she would soon take the hint. As we sat in the living room, Amaya prattled on about her recent projects, but my mind was elsewhere, pondering how to maintain my privacy without causing a rift between Daniel and his mom. Over time, Amaya's frequent and prolonged visits became more invasive. I gently suggested she visit less. You know, Amaya, I really need some quiet time to work, I would hint, but she seemed not to understand, or chose to ignore it. Out of frustration, I began leaving the house whenever she arrived, seeking peace elsewhere. One day, as I slipped out to avoid another long afternoon, Amaya followed me. Catching up to me, she called out. Amaya suggested we grab a coffee at a nearby cafe to talk things through, hoping it might help ease the tension between us. We settled into our seats, and Amaya ordered some food for herself. However, when the bill arrived, she suddenly claimed to have forgotten her wallet. Reluctantly, I covered the bill, trying to keep my composure, though I felt a surge of irritation. Once we returned to my apartment, I couldn't hold back any longer. Amaya, we need to talk, I began, striving to keep my voice steady. You can't just show up, invite yourself, and then expect me to cover all the expenses. Amaya seemed taken aback. I didn't mean any harm, Josie. I thought we were just enjoying some time together. Enjoying time doesn't mean you taking advantage of my generosity, I countered firmly. I have my bills and responsibilities to manage. Amaya left abruptly, clearly offended by the confrontation. When Daniel came home and I explained what had happened, he wasn't pleased with my approach. Why can't you just be nice to her? He protested. She's my mother. Daniel, she crossed a line today, I replied, exasperated. She needs to respect our space and my boundaries. You're overreacting, he dismissed. Just let it go for now. Amaya stayed away for a while, which was a relief, but then I noticed something odd. The cherished painting from my parents was hanging crookedly in the living room. I always made sure it was perfectly aligned. Puzzled, I asked Daniel about it. Oh, Mom took it to get it appraised, he nonchalantly replied, glued to his phone. She was curious about its value. I was stunned and immediately phoned Amaya, ready to confront her. But before I could speak, she chimed in brightly. Josie, I was just about to call you. The painting is worth $600,000. We should consider selling it. Amaya, it's my painting. You had no right to take it for an appraisal, I snapped, my temper flaring. Oh, come on, Josie. Amaya's voice hardened. Think of what we could do with that money. No, I cut her off firmly. Don't you ever touch my belongings without asking again? Amaya fell silent for a moment before hanging up. When Daniel returned home, I told him about the call. She wants to sell the painting, I said, still incensed. So what? It's just a painting, he replied dismissively. Just a painting? It's a family heirloom. It means something to me. I raised my voice, feeling my frustration peaked. You're making too much of this, he said, clearly annoyed. Just drop it. Determined to protect my possessions, I decided to move the painting to my office and set up a small camera for security, taking extra precautions to ensure nothing else went missing. One day, I came home early, something unusual for me. The house was quiet until I stepped into the living room and found Daniel and Amaya sitting on the sofa casually, as if everything was normal. "Daniel, what are you doing here in the middle of the day? Shouldn't you be at work?" I asked, surprised and confused. He looked up with a nonchalant shrug. "I quit my job," he said casually, as if it were the most normal decision. "You make enough for both of us." As Amaya nodded with a smug expression, it seemed they had orchestrated this moment together. "That's right, Josie. Why should he work himself to death when you earn plenty?" she stated with a sense of entitlement. A wave of anger and disbelief washed over me. "Are you serious?" I snapped. "You quit your job without discussing it with me, and now you expect me to support both of you?" Daniel stood, a grin spreading across his face, his calm demeanor almost taunting. "Well, yeah. And if we divorce, I'll need alimony." "Fair's fair. You make more than enough," he said nonchalantly. His words felt like a physical blow. This was their plan all along, to use me for financial gain. Stunned by the audacity, I found my resolve. "That's it. I want a divorce," I declared, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Amaya chuckled darkly from the couch. "Good luck with that, dear. We'll see you in court," she sneered, her voice filled with venom. Daniel casually picked up a duffel bag and began packing his belongings right in front of me. I was frozen for a moment, the shock mingling with painful clarity. The man I had married and his mother had been scheming against me all along. As Daniel walked past on his way to the door, he gave a mocking salute. "See you around, Josie." Amaya followed, her gaze sharp and hostile. "Prepare your checkbook," she taunted as they exited, the door slamming shut behind them, leaving a heavy silence in their wake. I slumped into a chair, my mind reeling from the rapid unraveling of my marriage. This nightmare was my reality. Shaking off the shock, I grabbed my phone and called Charles, a friend's husband and a lawyer. "Charles, it's Josie. I need your help. Daniel just left, and he wants alimony. And it's not just that, he planned this with his mother. I need to file for divorce, and it needs to be bulletproof." Charles's response was immediate and supportive, a lifeline amidst the chaos. "I'm on it, Josie. We'll make sure you're protected. They won't get away with this." Filing for divorce marked the start of a bitter legal battle. The first court appearance was torturous. Daniel portrayed himself as the innocent victim, claiming he had lost his job and I had abandoned him. He painted a picture of being the perfect, supportive husband, all of which were lies. But the worst part came when Amaya testified. "Your Honor," she began, her voice using fake concern, "my son is a victim here. Josie treated him terribly. She controlled everything and made all the decisions, and now she's throwing him out just because he lost his job. She's a real domestic tyrant." I sat there, stunned by their blatant dishonesty. Charles, seeing my distress, stood to defend me. "Your Honor, let's look at the facts. Daniel's story doesn't add up. Josie supported him financially and emotionally, and there's evidence to prove it. The claims of her being a domestic tyrant are not only unfounded, but also an attempt to manipulate this court. Despite our efforts, I could see that Daniel's emotional act and Amaya's feigned support had impacted the judge. As we left the courtroom, Amaya approached me with a smirk. "You think you're smart, Josie, but just wait. You'll lose, and when you do, you'll be paying out for years," she hissed. Her words were chilling, but I steeled myself. This was not just a fight for my finances, but a fight for my dignity and truth. I took a deep breath, steeling myself as I faced her, defiance burning in my eyes. "We'll see about that," I retorted, with Charles's comforting presence beside me as we left. The drive home was a whirlwind of thoughts. It was infuriating how they always twisted the facts, casting me as the antagonist in their warped narrative. Charles reassured me that we would counterattack, that we would unveil the truth. Yet, a part of me was gnawed by doubt. What if the judge sided with them? The looming court decision weighed on me heavily. Back home in the serene quiet of my living room, the threat of losing everything became palpable, and I was not about to let Daniel and his manipulative mother win without a fight. Driven by urgency, I called Freya, her husband Charles, who was also my attorney, needed to hear what I had planned. "Hey, could you and Charles swing by? We need to discuss the case," I urged her over the phone. When they arrived, we started off with some coffee, settling in before diving into the case details. Mid-conversation, Freya, eyeing a painting I had recently rehung, remarked, "Doesn't that look more vivid than before?" Turning to see what she meant, the colors did indeed seem unusually bright. A suspicion crept over me, prompting me to check the hidden camera I had installed in my office. I reviewed the footage, and there it was. A few weeks back, Daniel and his mother were in my office, acting suspiciously before they took down the original painting. Daniel then disappeared off-screen, returning with a different piece, which they hung up deceitfully. I turned up the volume, catching their scheming whispers. "Once we swap this, she won't even notice. Then we can sell the original and split the money," Daniel plotted, with his mother's conniving laughter echoing. "She trusts too easily. Once we file for divorce, I'll make sure you get alimony. She's just a gullible fool." Fury and betrayal welled up inside me. After taking a moment to compose myself, I walked back to the living room. "You need to see this," I declared, my voice calm but firm. We watched the damning video together, their faces turning from concern to shocked as the deceit unfolded on my screen. After the video, a silent consensus filled the room. Charles finally spoke, resolve in his voice. "This is it. This is the proof we need to win in court." We spent the day strategizing. Charles meticulously prepared the legal arguments while Freya helped organize the evidence, ensuring everything was set for the upcoming trial. As they left, Charles reassured me, "With this evidence, the judge will definitely see the truth." The next court date loomed ahead, a mix of apprehension and resolve fueling me. We were armed with the hidden camera footage, ready to expose their fraud. As the judge called the session to order, Charles wasted no time. "Your Honor, we have video evidence critical to this case," he declared confidently. The judge allowed us to proceed, and as Charles connected the laptop to the projector, a hushed anticipation fell over the courtroom. The video played, unveiling the calculated betrayal right there in my home office. As the video ended, revealing their deceit, Daniel and Amaya's faces went pale. The court fell silent, the weight of their exposed schemes settling over everyone present. The judge struck his gavel sharply, announcing a brief recess to further examine the evidence, stirring a flurry of whispers among the crowd. When the court resumed, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. The judge returned to his bench and promptly declared his readiness to deliver a verdict. With authoritative certainty, he stated, "The evidence presented clearly demonstrates a deliberate attempt to defraud the plaintiff, orchestrated by her husband and his mother." His stern gaze swept over Daniel and Amaya as he continued, "Therefore, I am granting the divorce in favor of the plaintiff and ruling in her favor in all matters of this lawsuit." But the judge wasn't done. He turned to his assistant, instructing, "Please call the police. We need to address a theft case here." My heart raced as police officers entered the courtroom and approached Daniel and his visibly distressed mother. Amaya, tears streaming down her face, cried out about her debts driving her actions as the officers handcuffed her. Daniel remained silent, his face a mask of shock and defeat. They were both escorted out amid the murmurs of the onlookers. The judge then addressed me. "Miss Jenkins, the painting will be returned to you. I apologize for the ordeal you have endured." As I exited the courtroom, the mixed feelings of the day washed over me. The victory was clear, but the sight of Daniel and his mother being led away left me with no joy, only a sense of solemn justice being served. Later, celebrating the end of this tumultuous chapter with Charles and Freya, I contemplated the future. "What will you do now?" Freya asked, raising her glass. I smiled, feeling a newfound purpose. "I'm going to focus on my YouTube channel and expand it. I want to share my story and help others who might be facing similar battles. I'll turn this experience into something positive." 3 years after the courtroom drama, I had settled into a routine. My work as an IT specialist was fulfilling, and my YouTube channel on data security and personal resilience was thriving. One evening, as I finished a video on cybersecurity, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Curiosity led me to answer. It was Daniel, his voice hesitant. Hey, it's Daniel. I just wanted to let you know that my mom and I are out of prison. We're in a rented place now. It's cramped, but it's something, he said, his voice tinged with awkwardness. I paused, processing his unexpected call. Okay, I replied coolly, wondering what he could want. I was thinking maybe we could try again? Start over. His hopeful tone held a hint of desperation that didn't sit right with me. A laugh escaped me, disbelief and amusement mingling in the sound. You've got to be kidding me, Daniel. After everything, you really think I'd take you back? I could almost hear his hope waning over the phone. We were good together, weren't we? Before all the legal stuff, he persisted. Shaking my head, even though he couldn't see, I cut him off. Daniel, listen. You betrayed me. There's no going back from that. The finality in my voice marked the end of that conversation, and perhaps the final closure I needed from that chapter of my life. After ending the call, a wave of empowerment washed over me. It was a clear sign that I had moved past the old ties that once held me back. Those who had tried to pull me into their deceitful plans no longer had any hold on me. As I turned back to my work, I realized that this incident was not just a personal victory, but also a compelling story worth sharing on my channel. It wasn't just about the recent call, but the entire ordeal that had unfolded. I set up my camera, ready to share a different kind of video with my viewers. Hey everyone, I started, my voice firm and confident. Today, I want to talk about something a little different. I'm going to share a personal story of how I discovered a serious betrayal and fraud in my life using a hidden camera. I went through the details of setting up the camera, what it had captured, and how crucial it was in my legal battle. This is why staying vigilant is so important, I concluded. Technology can be a powerful ally in protecting ourselves from those who seek to deceive and exploit us. After I uploaded the video, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Messages of support poured in, along with stories from viewers who had encountered similar situations. It was evident that my experience struck a chord, offering not just a warning but also a message of strength and resilience to others. This experience, though challenging, underscored the importance of being proactive and cautious, even in personal matters. It also reminded me of the broader impact of sharing our stories, to educate, empower, and connect with others facing their battles, showing them that they too can overcome and safeguard their lives.
What the hell are you saying? You housekeeper, my mother-in-law snapped. What? A housekeeper? I'm freaking out. Yes, you're like a housekeeper in this house, she continued. You don't make much money, so you have to do your job as a housekeeper, my father-in-law added. We won't have any problem without you, my mother-in-law continued. I understand. Then I'll leave you without any hesitation, I replied. My name is Skylar, a 31-year-old housewife. My husband Rowan and I have been married for 2 years. We got married through the so-called shotgun marriage, so we have a 2-year-old daughter. My husband and I were originally classmates in high school, and we started dating when we met again at a class reunion. 2 years after we started dating, we found out that I was pregnant and got married. However, we were in our late 20s at the time, and it was quite normal to get married and have a child, so there was no problem. In fact, I got the impression that the birth of our child made the transition to motherhood smoother. We lived happily after the marriage. I took full maternity leave so I could concentrate on raising our child and being with her all the time. My husband loved her very much, and when he came home from work, he was always with her. We had a really good atmosphere in our home. But one thing disrupted this peaceful life: moving in with my in-laws. My mom and dad want me to move in with them, Rowan said one evening. What? Why? They're not that old yet, are they? I asked, feeling a bit surprised. No, but they've been telling me that for a long time. Being the eldest son, I'm supposed to live with my parents, he explained and continued. Well, I wanted to live with just you and our daughter as a newlywed, so I said no, Rowan admitted. But now that our kid is 3 years old, I think it's time for us to move in with them. Besides, my mom can help you with the housework, right? He added. I certainly appreciate that, I replied. I'm currently working part-time, But it's not easy to raise a child, work and do housework all at the same time. I don't see my in-laws frequently, but when I do, I can see how much they care for my daughter, and I don't have a negative opinion of them. I think we might be able to work things out if we move in together. I had a preconceived notion that living together would be difficult, but after thinking about it, it seemed like it wouldn't be a problem. So I agreed to move in with them. But it seems that this decision was wrong. For the first month or two after we moved in together, my in-laws were courteous to me, or at least that's what it felt like. But gradually, my parents-in-law's attitude changed. "Skylar, can we have dinner a little earlier?" my mother-in-law asked one day. "I'm sorry, when I pick up my daughter after work, it's usually around this time," I explained. "If you work part-time, you should come home earlier," she replied bluntly. "Well, it's my job, so—" I started, but she cut me off. "It's so half-hearted and it's really bothering me," she uttered. "Why do they have to say that much? My work usually finishes around 4 p.m. Then I pick up my daughter from daycare, go to the supermarket, come home, and prepare dinner. So, dinner time is usually around 6 p.m. It's not particularly late, and my daughter is not home yet at that time. I mean, the mother-in-law doesn't do any housework, so why is she complaining about it? And since she lounges around all day, I'm sure she hasn't even digested lunch yet." And not only my mother-in-law, but also my father-in-law gradually changed his attitude toward me. "You haven't cleaned the bathroom yet," he said sharply. "Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to prepare dinner first," I replied, trying to stay calm. "You're so slow. Can't you do your chores more quickly?" he snapped. "What?" I couldn't help but express my frustration. "You're so useless," he shouted. My in-laws started to be harsh with me little by little. I couldn't hide my confusion. I knew I couldn't just leave this problem, so I talked to my husband about it. "Why are your parents being so cold to me lately?" I asked Rowan. "What? Is this your imagination?" he replied dismissively. "No, it's not. They get absolutely angry over the slightest thing," I insisted. "Well, maybe they want you to become a better wife. There's nothing wrong with that," Rowan said with a small smile on his face. I was totally wrong to ask him. Later, I realized I was wrong to marry him. My feelings for my husband gradually began to fade away. After that, my in-laws' attitude became worse and more demanding, day by day. "Hey, give me a massage," my mother-in-law demanded one evening. "I haven't finished washing the dishes yet," I tried to explain. "Don't talk back to me and come here quickly," she snapped. When I was forced to give a massage to my mother-in-law and was late washing dishes, my father-in-law snapped, "Hey, the cup I always use hasn't been washed yet. You're so useless. Can't he wash his own cup?" I couldn't understand why my in-laws' attitude had become so cold. I had no choice but to ask my husband to speak with them. My husband said it was too much trouble to speak with them, but when I pressed him, he reluctantly agreed to it. "So, how did it go?" "What did your parents say?" I asked hopefully. "Well, they said something about part-time workers not having human rights," Rowan answered nonchalantly. What? What's that?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Anyway, they don't like the fact that you work part-time instead of full-time," he continued. "But that's what you asked me to do. You asked me to work part-time because you can't raise kids and do housework at all. You told that to your parents, didn't you?" I demanded. Well, I didn't think my parents had changed their attitude because of such a thing, so I was so surprised, and I didn't have time to tell them that, he said, looking away. "That's impossible. I really don't know why I married him. He might already have abandoned me. I had half considered divorce immediately. I've lived like that for the sake of my daughter. There should be a father. But then one day I witnessed a terrible scene. It was the weekend, and I was shopping at a grocery store. When I came home, my mother-in-law was sitting in the living room with my daughter. She suddenly said the most unbelievable thing to my daughter. "Oh, if you were a boy, I would have been happier. Why did it have to be a girl? It's such a shame," she stated. I couldn't believe my ears. Could she be saying this to a 3-year-old child? I stepped in and said, "Mother, please don't talk to my daughter like that." She looked startled and uttered, "Oh, I didn't know you were home. Please take back what you just said," I demanded. "No, why should I take back what I meant?" She resented. "What if she gets traumatized?" I explained. "She doesn't understand what I said. You're overreacting," she excused herself. I had already lost my patience. It's not about what she understands. It's about what you're teaching her. I won't let you harass my daughter, I said angrily. Harass you, she shot back. When have I ever harassed you? Are you pretend like you don't know? If you're not aware of it, you have a very twisted character, I responded. You! What are you talking about, a housekeeper? My mother-in-law asked, and I could feel her anger rising. A housekeeper? I asked, perplexed. That's right. You're just a housekeeper in this house, she snapped. While we were arguing, my father-in-law came into the living room. So noisy, I can't even read the paper. What's going on here? He asked. My mother-in-law quickly pointed at me. She's trying to start a fight with me, she stated. What? She's got a lot of nerve for a housekeeper, he muttered, clearly uninterested. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I see. You two call me a housekeeper right behind my back. You guys really are a bunch of assholes, aren't you? I accused them. Screw you. I don't deserve to be made fun of by a bum who works only part-time. You don't make much money, so you have to take care of the house as a housekeeper, my father-in-law said angrily. And you don't get to challenge your mother-in-law. You're worse than a housekeeper. You should leave already, he added. You got pregnant just to get our son's money so he wouldn't run away. That's what a woman with a bad character like you would do. We won't have any problems without you, my mother-in-law concluded. I stood my ground. Say whatever you want, that's enough. You all need a reality check, I finished. I decided right then to pack my bags and leave the house with my daughter. Just then, my husband, who had gone fishing, came back. Oh, Skylar, what are you doing with such a big suitcase? He asked, confused. I've been fired as a housekeeper, I replied coldly. What? He said, his face paling. I won't be coming back to this house anymore, so good luck on your own, I said, pushing past him. My mother-in-law sneered as she watched me leave. Well, now my son's earnings won't have to be exploited, she smirked. My husband's face was pale, but since he didn't say anything at this point, I was done. I took my daughter and went to my parents' house. The next day, I got a call from my mother-in-law. Hello? Do you still want something from me? I asked irritably. Oh, Skylar, I'm sorry for the terrible things I said yesterday, she began, her tone suddenly soft. This change in her attitude. She must have heard it from my husband. What happened all of a sudden? I asked. I had no idea. I apologize. Please come back, she pleaded. No, you don't need me, right? There's no need for me to come back, I told her. I didn't know that you were bringing money into this house, she said, her voice trembling. I was paying $1,000 a month to you out of my salary, I explained and continued. Even though I work part-time, I'm a nurse, so I make a decent amount of money. My husband has a full-time job, but to be honest, his pay is always quite low, so most of it goes to living expenses. That's why I was giving you money from my salary. In addition, we are saving for our daughter's tuition fees and other future expenses. My husband is a kind person, but perhaps because of his low self-esteem, he is quite vain. So, when I left your house, he couldn't tell you that his own income was low and that his wife was helping him out financially. But when he failed to protect me, it was over for me, I explained. I told my mother-in-law that I would not go back, no matter what she said, and hung up the phone. Then I sent a message to my husband, saying we would talk through my lawyer later. I blocked all the numbers from my in-laws. I then decided to file for divorce. I asked my husband for child support and also for alimony for his silent approval of my in-laws' endless harassment toward me. My ex-husband is almost penniless now, and he has to keep up with the payments. Of course, there is no way he could put money aside for my in-laws. They're in a situation where their desire for a luxurious lifestyle has depleted their savings rapidly. They have even started to depend on my father-in-law's retirement fund, and now, at this rate, it seems that it'll be difficult for them to get through the rest of their lives. Well, it's none of my business anymore, but I think they deserve all of this. Every time my ex-husband sees my daughter, he asks me to help him out because he's in trouble. One day I said, if you keep bringing it up, I'm not going to let you see her anymore. He stopped asking me to help him altogether. I, on the other hand, went back to my parents' home and am working hard as a single mother. Since my mother takes care of my daughter, I can now work nights again, and my income has gone up even more. I will continue to work hard and earn a lot of money while watching my precious daughter grow up. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you like. See you in the next video. It's been 6 months since the divorce, and I'm getting used to living with my son, starting to regain a routine. In the midst of that, I received a text from my ex-husband, whom I divorced. "How are you doing? I miss the two of you, whom I love dearly," he wrote. "The two of us whom he loves, give me a break, even though it's all his fault." This is the story of how I fought against the lowest scum of a man and won happiness with my son. My name is Abigail, and I'm 29 years old. I married my husband Daniel a year ago, and we were leading a happy life. We met through work and got married after 2.5 years of dating. Daniel is 3 years older than me, and his income is lower, but that's okay. I fell in love with his dedication to his job. My husband worked hard, not only at work, but also at home. Since we both worked, we shared the household chores. It was probably because I had a higher income, but I was glad I could marry such a wonderful person. I truly believed that, but he changed after I got pregnant. It all started with a trivial matter. I had been feeling unwell, so I took a pregnancy test, and it turned out positive. "Danny, it looks like I'm pregnant," I said. "Uh-huh, seriously?" Daniel replied, looking surprised. "Yeah," I said, feeling a mix of emotions. He smiled widely, embracing me. "I'm very happy about it," he added. With him by my side, I felt like we could overcome any obstacle. At least, that's what I thought. A few days later, while having dinner, my husband suddenly came up with an unexpected proposition. "Hey Abby, what if we move in with my parents?" he suggested casually. "Huh? Live together? Why all of a sudden?" I asked, taken aback. We had never discussed such a thing before. We didn't see my in-laws frequently and had minimal contact. I didn't particularly dislike them, but I wasn't enthusiastic about suddenly living together. Why would we consider moving in with them now? "I'm perfectly satisfied with our current life, Daniel," I retorted. He hesitated before replying, "Well, now that you're pregnant, wouldn't it be better if my mom and dad were there with us in case something happened?" I frowned. That might be true, but living together has its own set of concerns. I didn't agree. "Don't worry," he insisted. "My mom is actually in favor of us living together. She was more excited than anyone when she found out you were pregnant." After that, my husband continued trying to convince me, saying things like, "It would give us peace of mind if we had the support of my parents, whenever needed." Even when I gently refused, he would argue, "What if something happens to the baby? How would we handle it?" It was difficult for me to strongly object when the topic of our child was brought up. As a result, I ended up swayed by my husband's opinion, and in my first month of pregnancy, we moved in with my in-laws. "Welcome, Abigail. We'll be relying on you from today," my father-in-law greeted me. "Take care of your health during pregnancy and give birth to a healthy child," he continued. "Your well-being comes first while you're pregnant," my mother-in-law added. "Take it easy and deliver a healthy baby for us." On the first day of living together, my in-laws welcomed me with smiles. "Thank you, father-in-law and mother-in-law. I'll be in your care from today," I replied politely. My in-laws doted on me, especially my mother-in-law, who took utmost care of my well-being. Maybe living together wasn't as bad as I initially thought. However, that feeling didn't last long, because within just 1 week of living together, I found myself in a servant-like state. "Hey Abigail, what's with this breakfast?" my mother-in-law snapped one morning. "Huh, is something wrong with it?" I asked, confused. "In this house, breakfast always consists of scrambled eggs, bacon, and toast," she explained, annoyed. "So why did you prepare bananas and yogurt?" But when it's just Daniel and me, we sometimes have bananas and yogurt," I tried to explain. "I don't want to hear excuses," she cut me off. "We have our rules in this house. Now that you are married into the family, you should adhere to our ways," she insisted. The rules quickly turned into significant differences within a short period of time. Of course, my husband and father-in-law didn't come to my aid. On the contrary, they sided with my mother-in-law. "What? You had bananas and yogurt for breakfast?" my father-in-law chimed in. "Is that true?" he questioned, perplexed. "Well, Dad," Daniel said sheepishly, "I actually didn't like having bananas and yogurt, but Abigail wanted to take it easy, so we reluctantly had bananas and yogurt. He tried to justify himself to his father. Reluctantly? Are you kidding me? I retorted. You said you wanted to have bananas and yogurt regularly. But my words were ignored. My husband's true nature finally revealed itself after we moved into his parents' house. He became increasingly selfish. Or maybe it was me who had been pushing myself too hard when we lived together as a couple. With my husband's attitude, my father-in-law also joined in, making the situation even worse. It's disgraceful for a daughter-in-law to slack off on family matters. Our daughter-in-law needs to learn a bit more, my father-in-law declared. Yeah, true, my husband agreed. I also had a hard time dealing with Abigail because I was comparing her to my mom. My husband and father-in-law casually carried on a heartless conversation that I could hear. I was slowly fed up with my husband, who conveniently made me the bad influence in front of my in-laws. I didn't want to stay in such a household, so I decided to work until the very last moment. Of course, even during that time, all the household chores were dumped on me, despite the fact that I was also working. The only saving grace was that I didn't have severe morning sickness. If I had been bedridden due to morning sickness or something similar, they would have criticized me even more. Doing my best to maintain a lifestyle unchanged from before was the most I could do to avoid causing trouble. However, the real hell awaited me after I started my maternity leave. Since I didn't have a job, I had no choice but to stay at home and inevitably face my in-laws. When I tried to go for a walk for the sake of my health and the baby's well-being, my mother-in-law confronted me. Oh, where do you think you're going? She stopped me. I'm going for a walk, I replied calmly. The doctor said it's good to exercise when I'm feeling stable, I explained. A walk? It's pointless at this point, Abigail, she scoffed. You've gained quite a bit of weight, and exercising won't help you lose any weight. She casually threw such insensitive words at me while laughing. Suppressing my anger, I responded, Oh no, it's not about weight loss. It's for my health. It's been said that it's better to be active when I can, as it helps with a smooth delivery. Oh please, do you really believe that? My mother-in-law sneered. If you have to be active, why not do housework instead of going for a walk? Let's see. Today, will you clean the stairs and mop the floors? It's exercise, and the house will be clean. Killing two birds with one stone, right? I felt nauseated by her loud laughter. Cleaning the stairs and mopping the floors while pregnant? That's way too dangerous. She herself had experienced pregnancy, so how could she say such things so easily? If I stayed at home like this, I would be assigned dangerous cleaning tasks. Feeling my safety was at risk, I ignored my mother-in-law's attempts to stop me and went out for a walk. I didn't want to go back to my in-laws' house, so I walked a longer route than usual. Before I knew it, it was already dark outside. I thought, I should probably head back soon. With a sigh, I returned home, only to be greeted by my husband standing at the entrance with an imposing stance. Hey, where the hell were you wandering around until this late? He demanded, his tone sharp. I just went to walk, I explained. My condition was good today and the weather was nice, I added. So basically you made up the excuse of going to walk and neglected your household duties, right? He accused. Excuse me? I replied, feeling my temper rise. Neglected my household duties? What's that supposed to mean? I did the bare minimum before leaving the house, didn't I? It seemed my mother-in-law had told my husband that I went out to play without doing any housework. My husband didn't listen to anything I had to say and simply kept blaming me. You like the rest of being a wife, he continued. Why can't you listen to what my mother says? He admonished me. Listen, I shot back. I'm not the housemaid of this house. Besides, we started living together for the sake of emergencies, right? So why should I be subjected to imposed rules and insults? I concluded. Perhaps surprised by my strong resistance, my husband didn't say anything in response. From that day on, my husband and in-laws no longer openly made snide remarks. However, that didn't mean they treated me with care as a pregnant woman. Their treatment of me remained unchanged. Still, it was better than being constantly subjected to their snide comments as before. Time passed, and I safely gave birth to a baby boy. My husband and in-laws doted on the child and became much kinder to me than before. However, I stubbornly refused to let my in-laws hold my son. Of course, They complained and grumbled about it, but I didn't care. After being put through so much unpleasantness, there was no way I would let them hold him out of mere stubbornness. One day, my husband snapped, "Hey, stop it! What are you doing? You have an arrogant attitude. Know your place," he stated to me. "Huh? I don't understand what you mean," I said, genuinely confused. "You leech off my parents' hospitality," he fumed, "yet you won't let them hold our child? You barely do any housework, and you don't work. Do you expect me to be a cash cow for you to be a stay-at-home wife?" Daniel said angrily. I couldn't bear it anymore. What kind of position is he in to say such self-righteous things? He earned less than me even when we both had jobs. He want to be a cash cow. Who is he kidding? With his income, he can't be a cash cow. My anger reached its peak, and I shouted, "Why do you think I won't let them hold our child? It's because they made my life miserable before our son was born. I do the necessary housework. I manage my own finances, using my savings without causing you any inconvenience," I replied. "You are my wife, aren't you?" he countered. "So what if I'm your wife? Even during my pregnancy, I did housework and worked, while you and your parents did nothing but complain. And guess what? I earned way more than you did," I shot back. Then my husband glared at me. "Enough! I'm kicking you out unless you apologize right here in front of my father and mother. Say, 'I'm sorry, my lord. I won't joke around anymore.' If you do that, I'll forgive you," he demanded. I felt disgusted. Is he serious? I thought. Why did I marry someone like him? It's not just a big mistake. It's a level of failure that makes me want to punch my past self. "Hey, are you listening?" he pressed. "Apologize quickly. I'm serious about kicking you out." He wanted me to kneel and apologize while reminding me, "A woman like you can't survive on her own anyway. Just come and do as I say." He continued to insist. I'd heard rumors that some people become like kings as soon as their partner becomes pregnant. I never thought my husband would be one of them. I couldn't forgive him anymore. At that moment, the anger I had been barely holding back exploded. "Understood," I said calmly, added, "I take your words and leave. I'll go pack my things." My response must have been unexpectedly shocking because my husband started panicking. As I tried to go back inside the house, my husband tried to stop me. "Wait a minute. Are you serious about leaving?" Daniel decided to clarify. "I am. What's the matter? Didn't you tell me to leave?" I asked. "You're just putting up an act. It's obviously impossible for you to raise the child alone while being unemployed. Do you really think you can be happy as a single mother? Come on," I said, "I'll forgive you if you apologize. So go ahead and apologize." My husband wouldn't stop. I couldn't help but burst into laughter, clutching my stomach. Is he still demanding an apology at this point? I thought. How far does he want to push this king-like attitude? I got tired of my foolish husband and vented all my frustration. "It's none of your business," I said coldly. "Apologizing to someone like you would be a waste of time and effort. It would be much better to apologize to a random statue nearby," I added. "Are you that dense?" he roared. "Who do you think you're talking to like that?" Daniel asked. "I'm talking to the mama's boy husband standing right in front of me, the one who prioritizes his beloved mama over his pregnant wife," I responded firmly. "Can't you not involve me in your issues, you piece of shit?" my husband spat. He was about to lunge at me, but suddenly stopped just before he made contact. There was a small crowd gathering around us. "What's going on? What's happening? Are you two fighting?" The neighbors whispered and gossiped as they looked at us. "What's the matter? Don't feel like hitting me?" I provoked him sarcastically. My husband's face turned pale and he went back inside the house. I packed the bare minimum of our belongings and left my in-laws' house. My mother-in-law, who followed me from behind, received a formal greeting. "Thank you for your hospitality, mother-in-law. I'm sure it will be tough for you with the neighborhood relations from now on. So do your best," I smirked. "Wait, are you really running away? Do you think you will be allowed to do that?" my mother-in-law shouted, but she quickly quabagaled down when she noticed the eyes of the neighbors on her. Thanks to the onlookers, I was able to smoothly leave my in-laws' house. After that, I stayed at a friend's place for a while and rented an apartment, using the inheritance I received from my parents. I went through a lawyer for divorce proceedings with my husband. The years of verbal abuse I endured at my in-laws' house served as strong evidence in my favor. The more you try to make excuses, the more you put yourself at a disadvantage. Worst case scenario, it goes to court. What will you do? My lawyer asked. The mention of a court case seemed to make my husband quite anxious. He immediately agreed to the divorce. I was also able to successfully claim child support for our son. 6 months later, I received a text from my ex-husband. It was repulsive. How are you doing? I feel lonely without the two people I loved, he wrote. The more I read it, the more disgusted I felt. Of course I haven't forgiven you and my in-laws, and I have no intention of forgiving you in the future. It's too late for you to realize that now. Instead of wasting time sending messages like this, pay child support. I replied like that, and since then I never received another text from him. Now, I've returned to work, and my son is in daycare. I have a decent income of my own. There are no problems living with my son alone. By the way, when we started living together, it seemed like my father-in-law was eager to leech off my ex-husband and my income. He retired early on. I'm sure my in-laws are living a miserable life right now. I want them to suffer as much as possible if I could. There's no way to be happy as a single mother. That's what my ex-husband said to me before. Now, I can confidently declare it. I am happy. In fact, I'm much happier than when I was with them. Now it's just my son and me, enjoying a happiness that couldn't be any better.